Good evening and welcome to the Quiet Library. I'm very glad you're here. Tonight, I'd like to invite you somewhere extraordinary. Not because of kings or battles or the rise and fall of empires, but because of a simple idea that changed the world forever. The belief that every question deserves to be explored, that every story is worth preserving, and that knowledge, carefully gathered over generations, is one of the humanity's greatest treasures. Tonight, we'll spend our evening in the most famous library in the ancient world, the Library of Alexandria. Before we begin our walk, allow yourself to settle in. There is nothing you need to do right now. Nothing waiting for your attention. There is no message to be answered, no decisions to be made. For the next little while, the world can continue without us. Take one slow, comfortable breath, and as you exhale, let the noise of the day drift quietly into the distance. Our journey begins just as the sun is sinking toward the Mediterranean Sea. The bright heat of the afternoon has softened into a warm, golden light. Long shadows stretch across the limestone streets, and the air carries a gentle breeze from the harbor. The city is beginning to slow. Merchants carefully gather the last of their goods. Fishermen return with the day's catch. Children laugh somewhere beyond the narrow streets before disappearing behind wooden doors as families prepare their evening meals. Oil lamps begin to glow one by one like tiny stars appearing before the night has fully arrived. Alexandria is alive, but not with urgency, not with chaos, but with the quiet rhythm of thousands of ordinary lives unfolding together. For a moment, we simply stand still. We listen. The distant cries of seabirds drifting over the harbor, the gentle creak of wooden ships rocking against their moorings, the soft murmur of conversations carried on the evening breeze, the steady footsteps of people making their way home before darkness settles over the city. Somewhere nearby, warm bread is being lifted from a clay oven. The scent mingles with salt from the sea and the faint sweetness of herbs growing in small courtyard gardens. It is a city filled with movement, yet somehow it feels peaceful. You begin walking at an unhurried pace. There is no destination that is pressing you forward, no schedule to keep. The streets themselves invite curiosity. Every doorway hints at another story. Every traveler carries a different language. Every face has arrived here by a different path. Alexandria is unlike any other city of its time. It is a meeting place, a place where Egypt greets Greece, where merchants from distant lands exchange not only goods, but perhaps ideas, where sailors carry stories across the sea alongside spices, fabrics, and precious glass. And above all, it is a city that believes knowledge is worth collecting. Not to lock it away, but to understand the world a little more deeply than the day before. Tonight, we are simply another traveler, walking quietly toward a place where the wisdom of countless generations rests patiently upon its shelves. The lamps ahead glow a little brighter now. The streets grow quieter, and somewhere beyond the next turn, the greatest library the ancient world has ever known awaits for us. Let's continue our walk. The evening air grows cooler as you continue throughout the streets. Above you, the sky slowly changes from gold to deep shades of violet. The first stars begin to appear, faint at first, almost shy against the fading light. Somewhere beyond the rooftops, the Mediterranean stretches endlessly into the darkness. Long before modern maps connected the world with neat borders and familiar names, this sea was a great highway. For centuries, ships crossed its waters, carrying grain, olive oil, wine, marble, cedar, spices, glass, silk. But perhaps the most valuable cargo was something that weighed almost nothing at all: ideas. Alexandria was built for ideas. Founded by Alexander the Great in 331 BCE, the city stood at the meeting point of continents, cultures, and languages. After Alexander's death, it became the capital of the Ptolemaic kingdom, whose rulers dreamed of creating not only a powerful city, but one that would gather the knowledge of the known world. As you walk, you notice that no single language fills the streets. Greek merchants negotiate prices with Egyptian craftsmen. Travelers from distant lands pause to ask for directions. A Jewish scholar discusses a passage of scripture with a visitor from Cyprus. An elderly sailor tells stories from voyages that seem almost impossible to believe. Each voice adds another thread to the tapestry of this city. Alexandria does not belong to one people alone. It belongs to everyone who arrives with curiosity. You pass a small workshop where a lamp maker is finishing its day's work. Rows of clay lamps sit neatly upon wooden shelves, each waiting to carry light into someone else's home. Their warm glow spills gently onto the street, painting soft circles across the pale stone beneath your feet. Nearby, the scent of roasted chickpeas drift from a food stall preparing its final customers before closing. A woman carefully folds linen outside her doorway. Two boys chase each other through a narrow alley before their mother quietly calls them inside. A cat stretches lazily upon a warm stone wall, paying little attention to the world around it. Life here is remarkably ordinary, and that may seem surprising. When we think of great cities from history, we often imagine emperors, philosophers, and magnificent monuments. But cities are not truly built by famous names. They are built by bakers who wake before dawn, by fishermen who know the tides better than any map, by scribes whose careful handwriting preserves ideas long after their own names are forgotten, by mothers and fathers who teach their children how to live with kindness, by craftsmen whose work quietly becomes part of everyday life. Perhaps that is one of history's gentlest lessons. Most people who have ever lived were never mentioned in books, and yet, without them, there would have been no history for us to remember. You continue walking through the peaceful streets. The crowds have begun to thin down. The sounds of commerce slowly give way to softer conversations and quiet footsteps. Ahead, rising above the rooftops, a group of elegant columns catches the last light of the setting sun. Your destination is drawing near. The place where generations of scholars believed that every scroll held the possibility of discovering something new. The place where countless voices from across the ancient world were gathered beneath one roof, but not to conquer one another, but to learn from one another. The library awaits. Take your time now. There is no need to hurry. Some doors are meant to be approached slowly. And this is one of them. The path becomes quieter still. The sounds of the city do not disappear entirely. Instead, they slowly settle behind you. The laughter from nearby homes becomes more distant. The calls of merchants fade into the evening. Even the seabirds, they seem fewer now. Ahead, illuminated by the warm glow of oil lamps, stands a building unlike any other in the ancient world. Its entrance is elegant without being extravagant. Tall limestone columns rise toward the darkening sky. Wide stone steps, worn smooth by countless footsteps, lead toward heavy wooden doors standing slightly open. There are no soldiers guarding treasure here, no palace walls separating rulers from ordinary people. Instead, there is something far more precious: questions, ideas, stories, memories, the collected thoughts of generations. You pause for a moment at the foot of the steps, not because anyone asks you to, but because some places they naturally invite quiet, and this is one of them. As you begin climbing each step, it feels almost ceremonial. The stone beneath your feet has carried philosophers, astronomers, poets, physicians, mathematicians, travelers, and curious visitors from every corner of the known world. Each arrived carrying different questions, each left carrying different answers. Perhaps that is the true purpose of a library, not to tell us what to think, but to gently remind us how much there still is for us to discover. A soft breeze passes through the open entrance. It carries the unmistakable scent of papyrus, dry, earthy, slightly sweet, mixed with cedar wood, beeswax, linen, and warm olive oil burning steadily inside carefully tended lamps. The fragrance is unlike anything else. It is the scent of thousands of carefully preserved conversations stretching across centuries. You step through the doorway, and the light changes. Outside, twilight still lingers across the city. Inside, golden pools of lamplight rest quietly upon polished stone floors. Long shadows stretch between shelves and columns. Nothing is hurried here. A young scribe carefully rolls a finished manuscript before trying it with narrow linen ribbon. Across the room, another scholar gently brushes dust from a wooden writing table before preparing fresh ink. Nearby, two other visitors speak so softly that their words disappear almost as soon as they are spoken. But not because silence is demanded here, but because silence feels appropriate. The library seems to breathe at its own gentle rhythm, slow, patient, undisturbed, unhurried, and you notice something unexpected. No one appears interested in showing how intelligent they are. No one competes to speak the loudest. Curiosity here is quiet. It listens before it answers. It asks before it concludes. Perhaps that is why learning feels so peaceful inside these walls. Knowledge is not treated as something to possess, it is treated as something to share. For a long moment, you simply stand there, looking upward. Rows upon rows of carefully arranged scrolls rest inside wooden shelves built to protect them from damp air and sunlight. Each one contains the voice of someone who hoped their thoughts might survive long after they themselves perished. Some succeeded, others did not, yet together they form something greater than any single life. A conversation between generations, one that continues every time another curious mind opens a scroll, or many centuries later opens a book, or quietly presses play on a story before falling asleep. You begin walking slowly between the shelves. There is no map in your hands, no destination in mind. The curiosity is guiding you. The shelves seem to stretch farther than you first imagined. Some are filled with neatly rolled papyrus scrolls, each carefully labeled with a small tag attached near one end. Others hold wooden boxes protecting particularly valuable works from dust and damp air. But nothing appears random. Everything has its place. For a moment you wonder how anyone could possibly find a single scroll among so many. Yet the librarians here have devoted their lives to answering exactly that question. Long before computers, long before printing presses, even long before books were bound into the familiar shape we now know today, people here were already creating ways to organize knowledge. Lists, catalogs, carefully arranged collections. The dream was wonderfully ambitious to gather every worthwhile work they could find and make it possible for others to discover it. Imagine the patience that it required. A single scroll might take weeks to copy by hand, sometimes months. Every letter formed carefully with ink and reed pen, every mistake corrected with remarkable care. The work demanded steady hands, sharp eyes, and extraordinary concentration. There were no keyboards, no copy and paste, only quiet craftsmanship. You pause beside a wooden table where a scribe continues working beneath the gentle light of a small oil lamp. His movements are slow and practiced. Before him lies an open scroll held flat by polished wooden rods. His reed pen glides across the papyrus with almost effortless precision. Dip, write, pause, read, continue. The rhythm is so steady it almost feels like breathing. Nearby, another scribe quietly compares two copies of the same text, line by line, word by word, looking for the smallest difference. Maybe a missing letter, an extra mark, a tiny error that might slowly change the meaning of an idea as it traveled from one generation to the next. In a world without printing presses, accuracy depended entirely upon human care. Knowledge survived because someone chose to copy it faithfully. There is something deeply moving about that thought. Every page, every sentence, every idea that reaches us across thousands of years did so because countless ordinary people believed it was worth preserving. Not kings, not conquerors, mostly careful hands working patiently in quiet rooms. As you continue your walk, you notice that the library is not silent. It's actually alive with gentle sounds. The soft rustle of papyrus being unrolled or rolled, the faint scratch of reed pens against carefully prepared sheets, a chair moving quietly across the stone floor, a whispered question, a quiet answer, the occasional crackle of an oil lamp. It is the sound of people thinking in unison, and somehow it feels almost musical. You realize that this place was never built simply to store information. It was built to keep curiosity alive, to remind each generation that there would always be another question waiting just beyond the last answer. Perhaps that is why libraries have always felt different from other buildings. They ask nothing of us except our willingness to wonder. You reach out gently, letting your fingertips rest for a moment on the smooth wooden edge of a nearby shelf. Before you stand, there are hundreds of voices from centuries long past. Poets, doctors, astronomers, philosophers, travelers, teachers, people who hoped that someone someday might listen. And tonight, across more than 2,000 years, you have. You continue deeper into the library. The shelves gradually give way to open halls where small groups of scholars have gathered beneath the warm light of hanging lamps. No one raises their voice. There is no debate meant to impress, or no applause follows a clever idea. There is only quiet conversation, questions asked with sincerity, enough, and answers offered with humility. You pause beside an elderly scholar studying the night sky through an open courtyard. Above him, the first constellations have fully appeared. He does not look at the stars with wonder alone. He looks at them with curiosity. How far away are they? Why do they move across the heavens with such remarkable order? Can their movements help sailors find their way across the sea? Can they help farmers know when to plant their fields? For him, every answer leads naturally to another question. Not far away, another scholar carefully unrolls a map. It shows coastlines that seem familiar and others that have long since changed. The edges of the known world fade into empty space, not because nothing exists beyond them, but because no one has returned to describe what lies there. How extraordinary it must have felt to live in a time when so much of the world remained a mystery. Today, we can see the entire planet from space. We can cross oceans in hours. We carry more information in our pockets than many ancient libraries could ever have contained. And yet, the feeling of curiosity remains exactly the same. The desire to understand, to explore, to ask one more question before the day is over. Some things never change. Across the room, a physician quietly discusses the human body with his younger student. There are no modern instruments, no microscopes, no CT scans, only careful observation, years and years of experience, and a sincere hope of easing another person's suffering. Nearby, a mathematician draws simple geometric figures upon a smooth wooden tablet, circles, triangles, lines, shapes so ordinary that most people would walk past without noticing them. Yet hidden within those simple forms are patterns that will one day help humanity build bridges, cathedrals, observatories, even the machines that carry people into space. Great discoveries often begin with remarkably quiet and simple moments, with someone sitting alone, looking carefully, thinking patiently, refusing to stop asking questions. You notice that no one here seems rushed. There is no race to publish something first, no competition for attention. Knowledge grows slowly, like an olive tree, year after year, season after season. Its roots sink deeper before its branches ever reach higher. Perhaps wisdom has always preferred that pace. You find an empty stone bench beneath a tall column and sit for a while. The cool stone still holds a trace of warmth from the afternoon sun. You listen. The scratch of a reed pen, the gentle turning of papyrus, the quiet crackle of an oil lamp, someone softly laughing at a thought or at a remark, another voice reading a passage aloud in Greek. For a few peaceful moments, no one is trying to be known. No one is trying to win an argument. Everyone is simply trying to understand the world a little better than they did yesterday. It is a beautiful way to spend an evening, and perhaps it is still a beautiful way to spend a life. The lamps burn a little lower now. Outside, the city has grown almost completely quiet. Night has gently settled over Alexandria. Soon, the library itself will prepare to rest. Time passes almost unnoticed. Perhaps that is one of the gifts of a place like this. When we are completely present, hours no longer feel like something slipping away. They simply become moments well spent. The library has grown quieter. One by one, the scholars finish their work for the evening. A final note is added to a manuscript. A reed pen is carefully cleaned. Fresh ink is covered to protect it until tomorrow. A scroll is rolled gently back into its place upon the shelf. Nothing is rushed. There is an unspoken understanding that knowledge will still be here tomorrow. There is no need to hurry wisdom. An elderly librarian walks slowly between the shelves, not inspecting, not correcting, simply making sure every volume has found its proper home before the evening comes to an end. His hands move with practiced familiarity. He knows these shelves as a gardener knows every tree in a beloved garden. Each scroll represents a voice, a question perhaps, a discovery, a lifetime of careful thoughts. And everyone deserves to be careful. The lamps burn a little lower. Their light becomes softer now, wrapping the room in gentle shades of gold and amber. The long shadows stretching across the stone floor seem almost peaceful. Outside, the city of Alexandria has settled into the quiet rhythm of the night. The harbor still breathes. Somewhere in the darkness, waves rise and fall against wooden ships. A breeze carries the scent of the sea through the open courtyard. The stars above continue their patient journey across the sky, just as they did for those who studied them here so many centuries ago. You take one last slow walk between the shelves. There is something comforting about knowing that every generation has searched for answers. Every age has wondered about the future. Every civilization has looked up at the same moon and asked many of the same questions. Who are we? Where did we come from? How should we live? What makes a good life? The answers have changed. The questions have not. Perhaps that is why places like libraries have always mattered so deeply. They remind us that we are part of a conversation much older than ourselves, a conversation that began long before we arrived and will continue long after we are gone. Before leaving you, pause once more beside the entrance. You turn back for one final look. The shelves stand quietly beneath the warm glow of the remaining lamps. The scholars have gone home. The scribes have laid down their pens. The room rests. The room rests, waiting patiently for another sunrise, waiting for another curious visitor, waiting for another question. And you step outside. The night air feels cool and gentle. Above you, countless stars shimmer over Alexandria. The streets are almost empty now. The city seems to breathe more slowly, and you begin the quiet walk back toward the harbor. There is nothing to carry with you. No scroll beneath your arm, no heavy bundle of knowledge to remember, only a feeling, a gentle reminder that curiosity does not have to be loud, that wisdom rarely rushes, and that some of the most meaningful journeys we will ever take begin simply by slowing down long enough to listen. Thank you for spending this quiet evening in the Library of Alexandria. I hope you found a little peace among its shelves. Whenever the world feels hurried, whenever your thoughts become a little too noisy, or whenever sleep seems just beyond your reach, the quiet library will be here. Another volume will be waiting patiently on the shelves. Another journey will be ready to begin. Until then, may your mind grow quiet. May your heart feel light. And may tonight bring you deep and peaceful rest. Good night.